I'm Coach Joel Lincoln. Welcome to Game Shots Basketball. Tonight we are recording episode 4, the summertime grind of corn fed with a side of Cajun sauce. I'm your host, Joel Lincoln. I'm the corn, and I'm going to introduce you right away off the jump. We had some breaking news last week. If you didn't tune in, Tony is about to cue you into something he is launching this summer. We're very excited to bring you here. That will soon be leading the leaders in the basketball realm. So, Tone, what are we going to talk about this summer when it comes to summertime grind? What are you going to be bringing to the coaches this summer?
It's a couple of interesting books that I'll be reading this summer. The first one is by my guy, Rashad Phillips, or whatever. He used to play at Detroit Mercy or whatever, playing the McDonald's All American game with Kobe Bryant. He just came out with this book or whatever. I actually got a chance to meet him in Atlanta at the EYBL session. He was coaching the Houston Hoops 16U team. So it was a pleasure meeting him or whatever. But this is a book that he published. It's called Basketball Position Metric. It's basically about the evolution of the game with when it comes to like positions, how we go off center, power forward, small forward, shooting guard, point guard, or whatever. He got some different analogies in this book that you guys can probably dive into, and it's pretty intriguing. So this one of the books I'll be reading right here. So get in,
Yep, there you go. The
get it if you
basketball
can.
position metric by
Yeah.
Rashad Phillips. What's one of the positions, Tone? Have you had a chance to dive in and figure out what any of the new positions or things that he
Um.
talks about are?
No, you know how we always say combo guard. He got different details about what a combo guard entails. He actually doesn't look at Stephen Curry as a point guard or whatever, or a shooting guard or whatever. We kind of look at him as a combo guard, but he's had some really interesting stuff in the book. I just skimmed through it, but we Friday is our last day of school for the
Hey,
summer, so pretty excited about that. I don't have to wake up in the morning to drive the bus. No, I'm just
you're
playing. I enjoy driving the bus. I enjoy driving the bus. So
okay.
this
Well,
is
excellent. What else
yep.
you
I
gonna
have
be?
another.
Oh,
I have
wait.
another
There's
book.
more. Okay, what do
Oh
we got?
yes. Book is by Coach Munch. He coaches with the PSA Cardinals team in the Nike EYBL session. Actually ran into him in Atlanta. With this is his book or whatever. It's pretty good about the life experiences he has had or whatever, good, bad, But get this book. It's
And
on Amazon.
can you give a little background into Coach Munch and kind of what his journey's been? Obviously, great reading. That's actually on my summer reading list as well. But can you give, just for people that aren't familiar, maybe are just tuning in and just starting to learn about elite basketball and elite grassroots hoops specifically, give me just, give the listeners just a quick synopsis on, what he's about and kind of what the book is going to be previewing.
He's been around forever. He's been in the grassroots game forever. So you know how those New York guys are. They always grinding to the day they go home and meet the good Lord. But I think he used to be with the Gauchos or whatever. But he's you know New York is the hotbed of basketball. So when I got a chance to meet him or whatever, we exchanged numbers. I told him I was gonna mention his book in the podcast. So looking forward to seeing what he talks about in his book in his journey. So make sure y'all get it. Um,
Absolutely.
and the
That's
last book, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, shoot, and this is big. Hey, and we're recording this on the Wednesday, the 17th. So that means Tone's only got 2 days left of school. So he's just giving these are the things he's gonna be diving into. And after this last thing, we're actually gonna tie this all together with nice little bow. So Tone, what's the last book you're gonna be looking at this summer?
This book is pretty much like not it's not about X's and O's or anything like that. When it comes to coaching, basically just dealing with personalities that we have with players and stuff. So I wanted to dive into this book as well. It's called What Drives Winning by Brett Ledbetter or whatever. So I just always try to focus on, how I can reach our players because each year, you don't coach, your team the same way or whatever. So, just learning our players this year because they're young, and we still have them, whatever. We have some seniors that had a lot of, minutes or whatever, but most of our load came from our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So having a team like that, we always had that chemistry or whatever. I just wanted to do a better job as an assistant coach, to balance out everything so we can be successful again. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even though going 24-9 this year or whatever, losing in the first round, maybe we can build on that or whatever. Because the ultimate goal, for team success is to win a championship. So see how close we can get to that. But those are the three books that I've been focusing on. Shout out to Rashad Phillips, shout out to Coach Moach or whatever. Reading for me is kind of peace or whatever. That way I can learn different things. Then, you learn from other people's experiences too. So how they can better myself because, the best thing a human being can do is make mistakes. And after that, how can you improve, everything or whatever. So, but I'm still, writing in my journal or whatever. I still have this book as well that I mentioned last week. So I've been skimming through this or whatever. But those gonna be the three main books. I mean, four main books, and of course, me journaling each day or whatever. One thing I picked up from my last podcast is how Joe said how he gets 10 wins each day. So that can be, for example, for me, how I've been kind of jotting down, like, waking up in the morning, looking at a Bible verse or, getting a little run in, how can I be a blessing to somebody? How can I help somebody? Um, you know, um, Pulling one of our players aside because we start practicing, stuff like that. Just, not talk about basketball, how things are going in their life, stuff like that. So, other than that, I'm ready for the summer,
I
you
hear
know.
you. So, hey, one quick question before we do start talking about that summertime grind is how did you select that last book? Was it recommended? Did you just see it? And how, and I guess in general, I think one thing I'm always curious about, especially by people that read regularly, is how you go about selecting books, or was it given to you? How, especially that last one, because I've never heard of it. How did you go about how'd you find out about that one, or how'd you pick that one?
Actually, our football coach at our high school, he actually had it or whatever. But every Friday at school, I think this is the last Friday, but they have a Bible study with all the coaches at at the high school or whatever, and I just so happened to be in there one day and he had it on the desk, and I said, "Can I borrow it or whatever?" Actually, I had it for a couple months, so I've been waiting on this day to get some free time and just and dive into it or whatever. So shout out to our football coach Brett Beard, you the
Let's
man.
go. Well, excellent. And
Bunch of shout outs. We give a bunch of shout outs. We
hey,
give a bunch of
we
shout
gotta,
outs.
yeah, we gotta give some people some love. Hey, absolutely. And one thing that Tony forgot to mention, I'm gonna announce here, and he's gonna let you know how to get in touch with him. Is he's gonna be doing a read along with him this summer. He's launching the biggest basketball coaches book club in the world, and all you have to do is tweet him, and he's going to be organizing some things. And Tone, I know we're going to have one live coaches little kind of meet up or talk about a book at Snow Valley. Which one is the Snow Valley book for the summer?
Um, we haven't gotten it yet, so let's just keep that on the hush until we get it, because every coach is gonna get the book. So
All right.
so
Well, hey,
whenever we get the book,
once the word is out, make sure you're tweeting at Tony. And if you would like to guess, if you think you know what book it's going to be, make sure you let him know. And if you get it right, he will retweet it. If not, we will let you know what that book is next week on episode 5. So, Tony, the topic of the summertime grind, I think you touched on it great, with adding something as an assistant, as a head coach, whatever that is, every offseason, using that not only, and we're going to talk about players here in a few minutes and what they can do in the summer to improve, but I think that coaching in the summer, and I think I'll speak from my experience, is one thing that's really set me apart is having the opportunity to coach at hundreds of camps every summer. I mean, I think back to when I started at Northwest Missouri State, and I emailed and got in touch with the guys, or actually tweeted and got in touch with the guys with Midwest Elite Basketball. Worked a couple summers for them, which I mean, they still run their camps, but I mean, you're on the court for at least 5 hours. If you're doing a double, you're getting 10 hours, bringing great energy with all types of talent levels, all different places, and that obviously just getting that on-court experience, but then also the traveling for me has been huge. And just one story, I guess, like in before we get into the players with coaches, like and because I'll speak to my experience again, that most people ask me like, oh, how are you doing this, or how'd you get involved with that? And um our guy. So I worked Snow Valley Basketball School when I graduated high school in 2009. I started as a counselor, and a guy that's been a great mentor for obviously myself and Tony, and most coaches that, especially Snow Valley guys, and Tate's Lock. And he, you know, especially taught us about the reps and just getting that bigger, but always giving it away and things like that. But just, learning how to learn. And in that summer, giving me the opportunity, he, um, helped me. Billy Donovan at the time was at Florida, and he helped me get into that camp. And I'm 19, no, excuse me, I'm 20 years old. Just got done as a freshman manager at Northwest Missouri State. He helps me get in. Coach Mack helped me get in to coach. Took a Greyhound bus from Davenport, Iowa to Gainesville, Florida. The ticket was 241 for the week of camp I worked, and I think I got like two polos. A couple managers hit me with a little bit extra swag. I made 285, and then I busted back all the way back from Gainesville all the way back to Davenport, Iowa. 31 hours on a Greyhound bus after that was. So I think some of those stories, just those two little nuggets for me of just putting in the work, especially young coaches. We volunteer for CP3 camps. I mean, I think that summertime grind, especially for coaches, there's a lot of different ways you can get better. And especially for young coaches, make sure like you're getting out there. And Coach Locke always said, and I think Coach Showalter says it a lot, and I live by it, is never say no to a basketball opportunity. I think, in the summers, that as things like that come up, I think as a coach, you got to make sure you're taking advantage of it, not only reading the books, but also getting out there and getting outside of your comfort zone, the same way we ask our players to. So Tony, as you said, you get done with school on Friday. So what does summer basketball or summer training look like in down there in the boot and the bayou, the great state of Louisiana? You guys get out on Friday. What does next Monday look like all the way through early August?
Um, Starting on Monday, we'll start weightlifting and we'll practice and stuff like that. You know, being in high school, you have multi-sport players, so we give our football guys, which they come in the come in the mornings before us. We give them a little time or whatever, do what they need to do with football, and then they come to us or whatever. Then with all that, depending on what they did in football or whatever, how the duration of practice and stuff like that. But I think our main goal is just getting stronger and just keeping our guys in the gym. And most kids they don't play. They don't play pickup anymore or whatever. Most of them like just training, going to see somebody, and you know with me and you, when we play basketball, we try to learn the fundamentals on our own, but we try to add our own creativity or whatever. And if it's I can give an analogy about cooking eggs or whatever. We both know how to cook eggs or whatever, but once we learn the fundamental, steps of cooking eggs, now we can add our own creativity to it. We might gonna add some salt, pepper. Down here, we might add some Tony Sassers or whatever. We don't use salt and pepper down here. Stuff like that. So we try to keep our guys in the weight room. We try to focus more on that this year and just get them to play a lot of pickup. Play a lot of 3-on-3 stuff like that or whatever. Other than that, me working camps in June on the weekends, so that don't interfere with what we do. With our high school program. So that'll be the main thing. I mean, then we don't do anything in July or whatever. We kind of give our kids the time off, get away. Football, it goes on until football season ends or whatever. So and it's hot. It's hot on that turf field. So
Mic test 1 2.
you're good.
All right, we back. Sorry about that. I've got the dumbest setup of all podcast in the history right now. I'm standing outside, beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. We got Tank inside. We got Larry Bird inside. And I'm out here standing on the balcony, projecting it to the people. So, but one thing that I want to really add value to is the off-season development. You've got basically 12 weeks from the time your school year gets over into, you know, fall or back to school time. So I think making sure number one, what you're going to get better at or what you want to get better at. And I think whatever that is, it needs to be as specific as possible. I think and you need to make sure you're spending at least some of your time on that every single time you go in. I think number one is have a plan, know what you're going to be adding. And then I'd say number two is make sure you understand what got you onto the floor this past season or what's going to get you on the floor this next season, whether that's club season here in July during the live period, or if that means next winter with your high school team. Either one of those, I think and they're probably a lot of the same because your game really shouldn't change a whole lot. Obviously in the summer, it's a little bit different from a, I wouldn't say intensity perspective, but a little more freedom. In the summer, not to say there's no plays or sets, but there's going to be a handful of very loose or bad possessions, some may say, in all summer basketball, especially if it's early rounds, things like that. So, and obviously in high school, you're going to have various opponents, especially if you're a dominant player. You're probably not going to have a ton of issues night in and night out. But I think in the summer, understanding, hey, this is what I need to do to take myself to the next level. You see it in the pro game. And I think, as the advantage every pro has, is they only have one thing they have to do. That's get better at the game of basketball if they're not still playing it. And then number two, as a high school player, this is your opportunity to start closing that gap. So making sure you have a plan every day. Hey, where can I work out at? On the court, where can I run at? Was there a hill nearby? I mean, I think there's plenty of efficacy and good use for running hills. I think it's hard, number one. And then once you do it, you get in incredible shape and it gets you in shape much faster, as well as building that explosion. But then, where am I going to get my shots at? Where am I going to get a lift in? What's my food situation look like? Do I need to pick up, a little whatever part-time job so I can make sure I can get, the homie discount and a little employee discount at a Safeway, Harris Teeter, whatever that looks like. And really, if you're serious about it, having that plan. And I tweeted about this morning, if you want to be, your normal is your normal. And if you want to be, if you don't want to be normal, you have to be different. So that means you have to behave differently. And the more prepared, the more in depth and the more preparation you put into the plan, then more you're going to, number one, feel confident as you're executing it. And number two, it's going to help you improve. So really putting together that plan of what's the one, maybe two skills you're going to get better at. Obviously, your weak hand is something you're 1000% in control. If you can't dribble with your weak hand, and it's May 17th, May 18th when this goes live, and then it's now August 17th and you still have a left hand, I don't know what to tell you. That's on you. But whatever that other skill is that you're going to work on, or your weakness, make sure you have some focus on that. I think everybody needs to be a catch and shoot player. I would shoot at minimum, tracking 100 threes every time. Very easy after you get done with your shooting warm up. And I'm going to touch on this tomorrow in a video I'm putting out versus shooting work versus scoring work, but working on and making sure you do your shooting. And that includes catch and shoot after you do your form, and really building into, okay, I'm going to shoot 25 threes. I'm going in for an hour, or I'm going in an hour 15, about every 15, 20 minutes. I got to get 25 threes up, and, probably one set of that 25. And that's just simple five shots from each of the five spots. So you can go wing corner, 7 cut to the top, like very quick, efficient, especially if you have a rebounder, you're with a teammate. You and a teammate can each shoot 25 threes, 5 from each spot, 10 on each side, 5 from the top, like in less than 5 minutes of your, hour 15 workout. You do that 4 times, you got 100 threes. You keep track of, hey, I made 12 the first time, I made 20 the first, 20 the second time. So now I made 12 and 20. I'm at 32 for 50, double that. I'm at 62%. Shit, I'm shooting pretty well. Boom, 15, 20 minutes later, get another 25. Boom, I'm at 32. Let's say I make 8. Now I'm at 40 for 75 last round. Then get your, you finish up for 100 on that day, whatever you finish with, and write that down. I think your journal point is on point. I think the 10 wins, and I think when you combination those, and one thing I would like, and I challenge you and anyone else that's diving into that, number one, is if you just start keeping track of your wins, I'm a firm believer you start to look to compete more. And so when you start writing down your wins, I think that's good. But if you want to get pro numbers, and this is something that I'm very passionate about, is your assists. And I think, Tony, you're close to it as well. But, I try to get what I call the daily double. I got to get my 10 wins, making sure I'm taking care of what I'm doing. I'm not hitting the snooze. I'm making my bed. I'm eating right, not eating shit food. Like, again, not asking anybody to do anything I'm not comfortable doing myself, and writing that stuff down, because on the days when you have doubt, on the days when things aren't going well, on the days where you mess up a podcast setup and you start 30 minutes late and keep your guy Tone waiting, like, you just remind yourself of the confidence in all the other times. So when you do have those setbacks, when adversity does set in, you have a response to it, and you have there's unequivocal data. There's nothing that your mind, your inner voice can change when you have all of those points of, hey, I may have shot it poorly tonight, but I shot 100, I kept track of 100 threes. And if you do it twice a day, 200 threes every day for over the summer, and I, by the end of it, I was shooting 60 some percent. I just think if a kid gets in the gym, guy or girl, and they're working on their game an hour hard every day, going game speed and using some concepts of shooting and making sure they're swishing shots, not just making them, and really holding themselves accountable to a high level for an hour 15 once a day, getting in the weight room, eating the right food. Like, if you do that every day, and you're tough enough to do that repeatedly, day in, day out, putting that grind in, playing on the weekends, doing whatever you're supposed to do in July despite playing time, I think by next summer, or excuse me, by next fall, when you go into your high school season tryout, you're going to be ready to go. And I just think that that's one thing that's very underrated. And just shooting 100 threes. I think if you have a pulse and you're a basketball player and you have access to a gym and you're not shooting 100 threes that you're keeping track of every day, like, everybody wants to be Steph Curry, but as Steph Curry says, why, when he was asked why aren't there not more people like him? Because shooting's boring. After about 25 minutes putting that pill through the hole, like, you're going to get bored. But the guys or girls, all the basketball players, and that's the beautiful thing about this game, is if you put the work in, you're going to get better. And similar to this podcast, how it's going to get better, our setup's going to get better. And this summer, we're going to get better. I think players, you can go have a conversation with your coach, but I'm just speaking from experience as a former high school head coach. Like, when it comes to the summer, we've got things we're trying to work on. We're trying to, help you, of course. But if you don't, number one, step out and have a conversation unless you're a star player, in which we already probably have a good relationship then, and you probably know what you need to work on. Like as a high school player, even as just in tone, I'd love to hear your perspective as a guy that's been doing it for a very, very good head coach for a very long time. You know, that player that is, 11th and makes the jump into the rotation. Is it, what things do they do different to make that jump? Or that guy that's, maybe second or third look, make, that guy that's not even a look on offense going and making himself what, can you maybe think of an example or two that you've seen players make that jump, or things players shoot your college, when you played Division I basketball, Tony, what sort of things were you doing in the summer? And then what have you seen others do in the summer to help them be successful?
Um, that generation we had, we basically stayed in the gym and we played a lot or whatever. Even if it, when it comes to just getting up shots. End of the day, you gotta make shots. End of the day, gotta defend. You gotta know how to guard somebody. Um, which that's easy for that generation, that I grew up in, that but both of us grew up in to do. You kind of with this generation of kids, you gotta keep them, I guess, motivated with the truth. I think of a kid that we had a couple years back, JV Johnson. He actually cuts my hair or whatever. They opened up a barber shop in the area or whatever, and I remember his freshman year, we was about to cut him, but we ended up keeping him. His sophomore year did well. Then you start seeing those strides when he was a junior. Like he started maturing, got a little taller, got a little stronger. He wasn't a baby anymore. His senior year, he was a major contributor to the team, and his best game was against a crosstown rival, whatever way. He got a steal and went up for a layup, and I went crazy, and we had a good team that year too. I think we went 18 and 13 or whatever. But he was a major factor in that. I think with today's kid, you just gotta keep them consistent with telling them the truth, even though if it's not what they want to hear, but just keep encouraging them or whatever. Because it's hard. Because with the kids today, they'll linger and go do something else or whatever. And it's easy for them to quit. Unlike with us, we didn't quit because we had pride in us or whatever. So we stuck it out. But by you sticking something out, you can look back at it, 10, 15 years, you know, and you can share that experience with kids or any type of human being, you know, that you come across, and the one thing you can say that you never quit. So that's what I can that what I got from what you were saying. So
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think like, and Spolster talked about the other night, it was I think he called the beautiful struggle, or like the beauty in the struggle, or beauty in the process, something along that lines of, we had to go face some adversity. And I think we touched on it in a previous episode of, there's obviously reasons to transfer, right? Coaching change, obvious ones, family situation change, whatever. Like those are easy ones, right? Where, hey, every situation situational 1000%. There's situations where, I need to get to a different situation, just not right for me. And it's, detrimental to everyone. But there's also transferring away from adversity, transferring away from hard, cowering from that. And that shit sticks with you too. And that's where, I think you see it. And, I think we take, as elementary PE teacher, I take a moment just to remind kids, reminder minute to remind them to be resilient, that they are resilient. I'm teaching at a school where there's 17 languages spoken in the hallways. There's a lot of stuff going down. There's a lot. Every one of those kids obviously has a story, as every kid has a story. But you got some kids. Like, we got a handful of kids that they've got very interesting stories, and they're 7 and 8 years old. So, reminding yourself and just continuously being resilient, because just like anything else, it's a muscle. Reading's a muscle. Competing's a muscle. I think that muscle needs to get stretched a lot more. And I think the one thing that I got from a book I read 2 years ago is called The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt. And as parents and as coaches, I think there is times where we come up short of holding that kid accountable and reminding them that this is what you told me. And to your point of kids don't want to hear it, but I've found if you just tell a kid what they told you, it's, you're not being an asshole. You're not being any sort. You're just, reminding that kid that, hey, I love you. And, the greatest act, I think, is holding somebody accountable, positive and negative. You got to crush your goals. I think just reminding people, yo, you fucking went and did that. I think that's important too. But also, hey, you say you want to say you want to go play Division I, but, you're 5'10" and you work out twice a week with a trainer, and you never, you don't do your ball handling. You don't go and compete. You don't go find a pickup game. You don't seek, you're not trying to grow. You're not being a student of the game. It's just hard to really advocate for that. And I think that's one thing that players, do have a better awareness of now, of not, I don't want to say the game within the game, but like, when I'm out here BSing, and that's the one thing I do really enjoy about having cameras and everything. And I just remind kids of at events is, hey, there's somebody filming. You're on someone's film, whether it's your people filming or not. Somebody's gonna, if you're out here BS, and it could be a coach watching the other player, and they recognize who you are, and they see, in this little pick and roll drill, they're just out there bullshitting, and it may not affect it. Maybe it was, hey, whatever, we can make a million excuses, but I think being accountable and sticking it out and being resilient really are underrated. And I think we got as the adults in the room, remind kids to be resilient. But the last point on the coddling of the American mind that it really talked about was, I don't want to say the false threats, right? But I'm not a parent. So when I'm talking about people's kids, whatever you do with your kid, whatever you believe with your kid, that's the right thing. But I think there is a little bit, to a certain extent, of we worry about 5 years from now, but really just saying no to that kid and explaining why we said no for 5 minutes is going to save them from that, whatever you conjured up in your head. And, I've found most kids, when you tell them the truth, hey, this is why this happened. And, they may not like it. There may be a couple of tears, but you just tell them, that I understand you're frustrated, but I'm not going to change my mind. And I hear that a handful of times. Or you just remind them, hey, like, this is what you wanted. I want to get you where you're going. That's my job. I think that, and from a psychological standpoint, just reminding kids of, what they're trying to do, because it's very still egocentric. I think the maturity, the egocentricity is lasting longer than it used to be. Kind of, when you get to middle school, you kind of get a dynamic. And I just don't know. It's, getting later, even some college guys, I mean, it's tough when you got a personalized experience in your hand and access to that personalized experience every so often. So this summer, make sure you also, and JB talks about it all the time, Jeff Becker, make sure you're consuming good content. Cell phones aren't bad, but if you use it poorly, it's not a tool. So that's my rant on that tone. So with the Coaches Book Club, we're going to be coming out with a couple more details with that next week, including a graphic. Tony may be coming back, but I just want to appreciate y'all for listening. If you are tuning in, you found any value in this, make sure you share it with a teammate. Make sure you're checking out all of our content. We are consistently putting up content on YouTube. If you want to know what the absolute latest and greatest is, you probably already know, because since you're listening to this here and right now, but if you could really share that, even with a teammate, with coaches, with a colleague, and if there's things you want to see, I've been talking to a lot of coaches. If there's things you want to see on this YouTube channel, I work with all different types of ages and abilities of players, from a second grade team all the way up with kids that are playing elite, post grad, and some college guys at all different levels. So, and ladies. So if there's specific types of content, things you would like to see or give your players, maybe a specific drill or something that, you would like to know what I have done or use or have seen, please make sure you're putting that in the comments below, tweeting at us, email me, gameshotsbball@gmail.com. We're really trying to provide as much access to high quality basketball content and training as absolutely possible in each video, podcast, and anytime we step on the court. So thank you for listening. Make sure you check us out at Game Shots BB across all social media platforms, and tune in next week. Officially, I will be in Atlanta for USA Basketball Gold Camp. I know Tony will be going up to Crossroads Elite the weekend of the 2nd and 3rd. Elite 75 is this weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina, a sold out event. Media, there is still availability for that. The lineup of players and attendees, some has been online, but there are listing the players to watch coming out on Friday. Tune in to Stellar Hoops at Stellar Hoops on Twitter for a list of all the players, and I will be recapping that event, middle school event, boys for Charlotte, here in Charlotte, North Carolina at Olympic High School. That happens on Saturday. So Tony's going to tune back in for this last minute. I appreciate y'all checking us out. And if there's anything you'd like to see, any feedback you have for us, tweet us, DM us, email us. Tony, we got less than a minute. One final thought for the people. What do you got?
It's a shout out to our Snow Valley brother, Isaac Mills, for graduating from the University of Wisconsin. He was one of the my very first year at Snow Valley, he was one of my players I had on my team for the week. Then we know his dad, Josh Mills, really well. He actually, he's one of our dorm roommates, or whatever that we have. But shout out to Isaac Mills. He was a student manager for Wisconsin. Now he's going to be a grad assistant for him as well for the next 2 years.